Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I want to talk to you about the latest episode of Batwoman Season 3. It was called We're All Mad Here. And as it starts, we see Alice going berserk on a bunch of guys, and she even kills a guy, while looking for the Joker's joy buzzer. And upon finding it, she uses it on herself. She then wakes up in Mary's infirmary and says she feels like Beth again, which personally I was loving. I think that's great. I want redemption for this character so badly. Anyway, the next thing that happens is we see that she's in court where all charges against her are dropped. And she then tries to make amends with Ryan for using the buzzer and depriving her of, being able to let Marcus use it, because he can't use it now because she used it the one time that it had left in it. But she rejects her. Alice then goes to a cemetery and sees a vision of Ocean, which turns nightmarish, and she wakes up in her train car, very much still Alice, and despairing over Ocean and over still being Alice, just sobbing and just in so much pain. And it was to the point where she was yelling at her own reflection, telling Alice to leave her alone. And then she punches the mirror, and it was just my heart was breaking really for Beth, who is the real person underneath Alice. The next thing we see is that Jada shows up at Ryan's and runs into a surprised underwear-clad Sophie. So there's a brief interaction there. But then we go back to Alice. We see her raiding the supplies at Mary's clinic, looking for an antipsychotic to take until she can find the buzzer for real. And she ends up arguing with Mary, who breaks down and says Alice isn't really her sister, because her sister would have stopped her from doing the stuff that she did when she was Poison Mary. She essentially blames Alice for enabling her to be Poison Mary and ultimately to kill that hunter, instead of stopping her. And again, my heart was just breaking because, first of all, I feel bad for Mary because Mary's really a good person and she's torn up about what happened. And it wasn't her fault. And I feel bad for the two of them because I think there's real love between them. I think they care about each other. And for them to be at odds because they're both hurting, not only about their own situations individually, but because of how things are between them, just really sad, and I didn't like it because I want them to be okay. Anyway, Batwoman gets a hold of Marcus's schedule, and it leads to Barbara Keene, which in Gotham was, of course, shown as Commissioner Gordon's wife, who gives birth to Barbara Gordon. She's also tied to Commissioner Gordon in this show, but as his ex. And this revelation unsettles Jada because she knows that Keene is a member of the Black Glove Society. Jada is then kidnapped by someone impersonating her limo right in front of Sophie, outside the Ryan's bar. Mary goes to visit the widow of her victim and knocks on her door. But before we can see that actual meeting, we cut back to Alice, who is having a hallucination of Mouse while she's trying to track down the buzzer. And then she holds the Joker's toy lady over a buzzsaw and demands that she make her a joy buzzer of her own, at which point the toy lady mentions, she kind of laughs it off and says, ha ha ha. But then she says, I was with the Joker when he killed Robin with a crowbar. So the Death in the Family storyline has, at least in some form, happened in the Arrowverse and on this, in the backstory of this particular show. So that's interesting. She then tells Alice that she's been working for the Joker since she was 16, and that Alice shouldn't be under any illusion that she's the first crazy blonde woman that she's had to deal with being around Joker. Of course, that's a reference to Harley Quinn, whom we've seen in the Arrowverse before. So this wasn't really a revelation, but just, kind of an Easter egg. They bring her up. Marcus then shows up and shoots the toy maker lady, dead, even though she'd been working for him, up to that point since we first saw her. And then after chatting with Alice for a bit, he gasses her. and she goes out, she passes out. When she wakes up, she sees Marcus addressing a few captive members of the Black Glove Society, among whom are Jada, Barbara Keene, Jeremiah Arkham, the namesake of Arkham Asylum, and Mario Falcone. Of course, the Falcone operation in Gotham is notorious. You know, they're a gang operation, mobsters that we've seen on Gotham and in the animated, Batman films and so forth. He then gasses Barbara Keene with a concoction of various substances, which I guess were all used separately at one time on her own kid by her when I guess she realized he wasn't right, kind of like Marcus isn't right. Back to Mary in her visit with the widow, she learns from the widow that Alice had already been there and that she confessed to the murder of the hunter who in reality Mary killed. And she, the widow says, "Is that what you came here to tell me?" Because Mary says, "Look, I came here to tell you something about the death of your husband." And she was going to confess, but she learns that Alice has already confessed, and she says, "Yep, that's what I was going to come and tell you." So that was really cool. Alice doesn't want Mary to have to take the fall for that. So she confessed to it because she cares about Mary, which is why I want her to be redeemed and be Beth again so very badly. She's a good person. She has love. And, the whole thing about Mary is, oh, well, she can't feel love because that part of her brain was cut off, but that's not true. She does. And I want her to be okay. I want her to be redeemed. I've wanted this for a long time. And this is just evidence of the fact that she deserves it. Then we go back to Marquis and we see that he is still on his rampage. He murders his captors one at a time, much to Jada's dismay, and then threatens to freeze Jada like she froze him. And he almost joy buzzes her, but Alice runs up and tackles him before he can do it. After which he tells a story to Alice about Joker attacking his school bus when he was a kid and using the buzzer on him before he used the bus to run from Batman, who showed up. And it turns out that he crashed this bus into Mrs. Kane's car, killing her and starting Beth down the path to becoming Alice. So lo and behold, the very car crash that messed up Alice's life, that created Alice essentially in the long run, was caused by the Joker, and Marcus was present for it. So how messed up is that? That floored me when that came out. And it's just a great plot point that the writers came up with for this episode. And they just wove that in seamlessly. And it like an extra twist of the knife. Like, because he basically says, we're like the same thing. We were created on the same day. It was just poetry and a brilliant move by the writers. So I was floored and I was loving it. But when he goes to Jap Zeta again, Alice makes him an offer and she gets the joy buzzer from him. He gives it to her. But she's then confronted by Sophie before she can zap herself, as well as Batwing. Batwing shows up. He gets the buzzer from her, actually, and they, grab her, and they're going to take her back to Arkham, of course, and she's lying on the ground as they're doing this. She's begging them not to make her go back. And yet again, my heart was breaking for her because she was just so distraught over it and so, just despairing over it. It was really sad. Meanwhile, Batwoman rescues Jada and tends to the ailing Barbara Keene before being attacked by Marcus, at which point they argue about how he had everything and how she had nothing, before he shoots her point blank in the chest about 5 times, from which she is only saved, of course, by the bat suit. But it was just really cool to see her get shot and not actually get hurt. And after that, he yet again goes to gas Jada, but she manages to knock the tank of gas out of his hands, at which point he just takes off. In the aftermath of all this, Sophie and Ryan talk about their various insecurities and, how they were struggling with whether or not to be out as a couple because, Sophie's had issues in the past. and they didn't know, I guess, where they stood on whether or not they should be out, but they then sort of come to an understanding, and of course they kiss again, which is cool. At which point Mary and Luke show up, and Mary realizes for the first time that Wildmore is a thing, that Sophie and Ryan are a couple, and she is absolutely delighted, beside herself with delight at this realization, and just giddy over it. And it was the coolest thing ever to see her so happy that they were a couple. I just thought it was great. I really enjoyed that moment. Of course, Alice is then put back in Arkham, where she starts hallucinating again. She hallucinates a mouse as well as a guard that she had killed, and she lashes out thinking she's striking at them, but it turns out that Mary has come to visit her, and they end up having a tearful, heartfelt conversation in which Mary tells her that, you know, she's so thankful that she took the rap for her, and Alice says, you know, it's just one more on my resume. And Mary tells Alice that she knows she's trying. And God, I thought that was just awesome. I want people to be there for Alice and give her credit where it's due and tell her that they see her. I want this so badly. And the writers have been handing it out in drips and drabs, but it's happening and I'm there for it. And I just loved this moment. But then Alice very regrettably confesses that she gave Marcus the secret to accessing the Batcave. And that's where the episode ends. We see him in the office where the bookcase is, because, you know, he's taken over Wayne Tower, and he opens the bookcase to the path to the Batcave. And that's where the episode ended. So I thought that this was a fantastic episode for a number of reasons. You know, everything about it that I just said, I loved. Even the heartbreaking stuff I loved, because it's moving and it's powerful and it's poignant, and that's what you want to see in your art. And the writers have really brought it this season, and in this episode in particular. I thought it was fantastic. The plot twist with the Joker, who, by the way, is seen for the first time in Batwoman, talked about before, not having been seen before. He wasn't really seen all that much. The pictures, the images, you know, that the scenes that he was in were fuzzy when the camera was on him. But there was a backstage photo taken, a behind the scenes photo, I should say, of the actor in full makeup and costume. And so you can take a look at that. It's pretty cool. He's got a COVID shield on his face, unfortunately, but I think it's pretty cool. He really looked the part. So that was cool. And, you know, like I said, Mary realizing that Wildmore is a thing. And of course, Luke hadn't realized it either and still wasn't getting it as it was dawning on Mary. And she had to pretty much spell it out for him, which was funny too. So I just loved this episode. I can't wait for the next episode, which I guess is in fact the season finale. Can't believe they went on a break and then came back for 2 episodes. It's so stupid. But anyway, next week is the season finale, and we still don't know if Batwoman is going to get a season 4. I think that it should. I think they were crazy to renew it after season 1, but I'm glad they did. I can't believe they renewed it for season 3 during season 2, or whenever it was that they did, because it was still not great early in season 2. And now that it's gotten great, there's a chance it won't get renewed. And I think that's insane. I think they should, in fact, renew it. Now, if they do, supposedly we're going to see at least one thing that I think will be kind of interesting. According to the actress that plays Alice, in next week's episode, she's going to become Red Alice, which is a version of the Alice character who is being mind controlled by someone in the comics. I forget who it was, but that's who Red Alice is in the comics. So we could see that, or we should be seeing that. What it might be nice to see is some update on Kate Kane. I thought that they didn't use that character very well before, you know, when they brought Wallace Day in. I didn't think they did a good job with the character, but there's no reason they couldn't. There's no reason they couldn't have Wallace Day come back and play Kate. and give us an update, on her attempt to locate Bruce, and maybe even have her team up with Team Batman or fill in for Ryan for a couple of episodes. They could make up some reason for that. That would be cool. She just finished a project in Vietnam. I guess they shot it. It is called Sheroes, and that's coming out soon. She's in that, Wallace Day. So she's not tied up right now, as far as I know. She just finished that project. So she could come back for season 4, and that would be cool, I think. On that subject, I want to show you some artwork done by one of the Positronic Hypersonic viewers. That would be Anthony Antonellis. He's done a little poster that shows what season 4 could be like, and I'm going to put that up for you. It shows the Kate Kane Batwoman, and we have Alice, and note the mask she's wearing, so it's kind of a Red Alice thing, if I'm not mistaken. We have Spoiler, and we have Batwing. I think seeing Spoiler would be cool. I think they could also put her in Gotham Knights, but if they put her on this show, that would be great. And we have Ryan in the background there. Now, as I was saying, we could have Wallace back as Kate as Batwoman, just like in the poster. And what to do with Ryan? Well, Ryan could take up the mantle of a different character, maybe Wildcard or Red Raptor. And Anthony's done some fan art of what that might look like. And I think it would be cool if we continued to see villains that we haven't seen in the Arrowverse. Kind of like they did in the beginning of the season. We had Mad Hatter and Killer Croc and Professor Pig, which was so cool. They could continue that tradition in season 4. And we have some more fan art here from Anthony of Talon, who in the comics is sort of a villain with ties to the Court of Owls, which would also be cool to see. It's interesting that they went with the Black Glove Society instead of the Court of Owls. I don't know why they did that, but the Court of Owls is a similar kind of organization in DC Comics. It's clandestine, behind the scenes sort of villainy group. And so Talon has ties to that group. They could have Talon, and they could do the character of Red Claw as well, which would be cool. So I'm open to all of that, and I think these fan arts are very cool. So thanks, Anthony, for that. But it's all up in the air because they don't have a season 4 renewal yet. I'm hoping they get one. So that's really it. I'll be back with a review of the season finale, and until then, I wish you peace and long life.